students. Today we shall be dealing with the 21st session, that is the lesson I Have a Dream. So, this lesson is prescribed for the first semester BSc BCA students under the compulsory foundation course in English by Mangalore University. So, what is going to follow is an analysis of the lesson I Have a Dream, a speech made by Martin Luther King Jr. So, before we go to the lesson, I would like to tell you that um, the civil rights movement in the United States was a decade long struggle by African Americans. Like minded allies fought to end institutionalized racial discrimination, disenfranchisement, and racial segregation in the United States. The civil rights movement started in the year 1954 and continued up to 1968. So you have to study uh, uh, on the speech made by Martin Luther King, who was born on 15 January 1929 at Atlanta, USA. When Martin was young, there were laws that kept white and black people separate. Martin Luther was married to Coretta Scott in Boston in 1953, and he received a doctorate in 1955. Known for his role in advancement of civil rights and nonviolent civil disobedience, Martin Luther was shot on April 4th, 1968. So, about the lesson. This speech was delivered by the American civil rights activist Martin Luther King Jr. on August 28, 1963. In this speech, he called for civil and economic rights and an end to racism in the United States. His speech was delivered to about 250 million civil rights supporters from the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington. This speech was a defining moment of the civil rights movement. So, this is the place from where uh, Martin Luther King delivered his speech, the Lincoln Memorial in Washington. So, King begins his speech, I have a dream, by declaring that he is happy to join the audience in the greatest demonstration for freedom. Standing in front of the Lincoln Memorial, King notes the Emancipation Proclamation was signed 100 years ago, but today black people are still not truly free as they lack the same material benefits offered to other Americans. The march is designed to draw the attention to this fact. The marchers are there to redeem a promise, to cash a check written to black people by the US government and the founding fathers who promised all men were created equal in both the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. All men includes African Americans, yet America failed to deliver on the promise. Instead, it has passed a check that cannot be cashed by the black people. King and the marchers refused to accept that condition and demand the rights promised to them. The marchers are also there to remind the nation that the present is the time to act. Americans should not fall for the trap of making slow and steady progress. Instead, America must today fulfill the full promise of democracy and racial justice. The summer has been one of discontent, but 1963, he says, is only a beginning and not an end. The road ahead will lead to an autumn marked with equality for all people, so long as the summer's protests do not result in a return to the complacency of the years past. King interrupts to warn the audience that the road to freedom must not be laid by bitterness, hatred, or bad behavior, especially violence. Instead, those seeking freedom must hold themselves to a higher moral standard and meet acts of violence with acts of love and faith. It is a good thing that black people are now militant about their freedom, but they must recognize that there are white people in the crowd who have joined the march and who see their struggle for freedom linked to that of the black Americans. Black people must walk with the white people as no one can march alone. As they march, all must promise to continue to march forward. Many will ask the marchers if they will ever be satisfied. The answer is no. There will be no satisfaction, he says, as long as black men are victims of police violence, segregation, as long as segregation endures. Black people have no upward economic mobility and are disenfranchised. The marchers will not be satisfied until justice and righteousness pour through the nation. King turns from the general group to individual group. Some present have come from worse struggles than others. Some have come from jails. Some have come from areas in which they have suffered police violence and persecution. But to each of them, King asks to continue to creatively suffer, but to ensure the suffering begets change. He asks them to take that faith back to their home states. He returns to the group as a whole, announcing he still has a dream about the nation. His dream is that America will finally live up to the words of the founders that all men are created equal. He also dreams white people and black people will be able to sit together as equals, and Mississippi will be turned from a hotbed of injustice to a land of freedom. He dreams that in the future, people will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by who they are as individuals. And that Alabama will be a place where the white and black children can join hands together. With this dream, King will return to the South, and with this dream and this faith, everyone present can transform the nation into one of brotherhood as long as everyone works together. One day, American children will be able to sing America, my country, it is of thee, with new meaning, for its lyrics will actually reflect the truth. As a prerequisite for America to become a nation, freedom must ring across all majestic landscapes of the United States, from New Hampshire to California to Colorado to Tennessee and everywhere in between. And when that happens, all of God's children of all races and faiths will be able to sing the old African spiritual, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last. Thank you, students. With this, we come to the end of the analysis of the poem, not poem, the lesson